Hello, hello, hello. So today we are talking about Diana Ross. Miss Ross is the reason the word diva came to be a common nickname among female pop stars. Miss Ross is the original diva and was the queen of Motown in the 60s. She had 12 number one hits with the Supremes, including Stop in the Name of Love, Baby Love, and Where Did Our Love Go? She also had hits as a solo artist in the 70s and 80s with Love Hangover, Upside Down, and Touch Me in the Morning. She was a versatile performer and one of the few Black singers to successfully cross over into films with Mahogany and Lady Sings the Blues, which she received an Academy Award nomination for. With all of her contributions to music and film, and her long-standing, auspicious career, it makes me wonder why we haven't seen her life story on the big screen. Hello, my name is Tamika, and whether you stumbled upon Junkie for a Story or are here by intention, thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, please give it a like and subscribe. Also, take the extra step and click the bell to turn on notifications. There will be a link in the description for the biography I referenced in this episode, the unauthorized biography of Diana Ross, Call Her Miss Ross, by J Randy Taraborrelli. If you want more info about the book, you know what to do. And now, on to the video. I'm going to give you 3 reasons why we need a biopic for Miss Ross herself on the big screen, preferably. So it's been alleged that Berry Gordy and Diana Ross had a long-lasting affair that was kind of a known secret in and around circles. But Berry said he could never live with Diana. He does, I don't know if he admitted to it, but the consensus is that he did love Diana Ross. He definitely played a huge role in her career, both music and acting careers. And we know there is love between the two of them, but he never wanted to commit to her. And she obviously wanted to get his full commitment with a ring and his last name. But at that point, I don't know if he was giving her the runaround, but I guess you can kind of say he was. Because in 1966, she was 22 years old, and she said, I want the biggest wedding of all. I want what every young girl wants, to have a big, fabulous wedding, to wear a lovely white wedding gown with a long, endlessly long train, to see my mother and father all dressed up, and my husband waiting for me down the aisle in a tuxedo. And 4 years later, she was still not married to Barry, okay? Still not married. So, on January 20th, 1971, Diana Ross married Robert Silverstein in Las Vegas. And everyone was like, who is Robert Silverstein? I mean, he was an unknown. He was kind of an unknown. He was known in the industry, but he wasn't he was a PR guy, okay? And he had a good reputation, but he just wasn't on Diana Ross's level of celebrity. So it was considered an odd pairing, unexpected move on Miss Ross' part. But again, he was good looking. He had a good reputation. Some people did call him naive. He was younger than her. And I don't know. I get the impression that maybe this was an arranged marriage to move the conversation away from Diana Ross and Berry Gordy, because they were having an affair around this time, but they were never overt about it. So I think this was done to change the conversation. Now, some people said that Robert, who changed his name to a less ethnic name, so he eventually changed his last name to Ellis. So he moved to Las Vegas in 1970. And they say that Berry Gordy liked him. Some people said he was aggressive, had a winning personality, and was somewhat of a PR wonder kind. And that's what they said. I don't know. Anyway, this was Diana Ross's first husband. And for some reason, the newlyweds were hush hush about how they met. Miss Ross, she likes to keep the press and the public guessing, okay? Keep us intrigued about her. So they didn't want to let people know how they met, when they met, whatever. I don't know what was going on, but eventually it was found out that they met first in Las Vegas, then again in Los Angeles in somewhere around February of 1970. But again, with Robert Ellis being younger than her and also not of prominence, although he did come from a wealthy Jewish family. But I think it was more easier to persuade him to marry Miss Ross, considering she was pregnant with someone else's child, okay? So I don't know how that conversation went down. I don't know if he knew at the time or what have you, but at some point she showed up pregnant, or she was pregnant, and he was fine with participating in the charade that was he and Diana Ross as the parents of her eldest daughter. Now, this was the 70s, I want to point out, and Diana Ross did have somewhat of a squeaky clean image. She was very modest and appeared to be a good girl. So she really was very protective of her pop star image. And it sounds like, she found herself pregnant and she knew Berry Gordy wasn't going to be coerced into marrying her. And I guess she saw Ellis as a way out of that PR scandal that was sure to follow if everyone found out Miss Ross was pregnant without a husband. But before that secret got out, let me tell you what Diana Ross got her husband as a gift. This is the kind of person Miss Ross is, okay? All right, so I don't know. It doesn't say whether it was his birthday or what. Maybe it was a wedding gift. I'm not sure. But I guess with all the craziness surrounding her life and, the paparazzi and just all the focus on Diana Ross, she wanted to put her husband at ease, right? So she got him 27 of her albums. The perfect gift for the man who has everything. That's what it says. Okay. Then fast forward to September 1990. Suzanne DePasse was trying to get everyone together to launch a Motown 30th anniversary special for CBS. And obviously, one of the big ones would be Diana Ross. So I think she had already got Michael Jackson's yes on this, and Janet Jackson. And it took some extra persuading, but Diana Ross finally committed to making an appearance on the special. And then one day she was getting a pedicure when she overheard Berry Gordy's ex-wife on the Joan Rivers show talking about his affair with Diana Ross. So Berry Gordy's ex-wife, Raynoma Gordy Singleton, at that time had written an autobiography about, her life and her time at Motown, and just overall with Berry Gordy, being married to him briefly, having children with him, etc. It was just, excuse me, she had one son with him. I get it confused because she was taking care of his other children at one point. So, but they only had one child together. A very open and heartbreaking autobiography. But in that autobiography, she shared details about Diana Ross's life, which, Miss Ross didn't take too kindly to that. Now, mind you, Raynoma Gordy Singleton, she did work for Diana Ross as her secretary for, I believe she said 12 years or so. And this is where the name Miss Ross came from, because during one interaction, I think Raynoma was calling Diana Ross, I don't know, Diana or something, because she knew her from, before she was this big time celebrity. So, I take it she was calling her by her first name or something. And Miss Ross didn't like that. So she said, I know that you have known me for some time, but in my position, I need to be treated with more respect. Yeah, so Diana Ross wanted to be referred to as Miss Ross. And it was in this interview on the Joan Rivers show that Berry Gordy's ex-wife revealed that Diana Ross was pregnant with Berry Gordy's child when she married Robert Ellis. Now, according to her account, it sounds like Robert Ellis wasn't let in on the secret, okay? So, yeah, he was unaware that he was marrying someone who was pregnant with another man's child. So, again, Raynoma says what happened was that she and Barry were supposed to get married, but they didn't. So she married Bob, and she was pregnant at the time. So her first daughter was Barry's child. And then I'm guessing this is Joan Rivers asking, I don't know, but someone is asking, does he know? And then it says Raynoma quipped, he does now. I guess at that point, it does sound like I did read Raynoma's autobiography as well, and it did sound like she was strapped for cash. So she was willing to give up the secrets, okay, to get that check. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's lying, but I'm just saying, based on how she tells her own story, she definitely was running low on cash, okay? She had a cash flow problem for most of her life, I would say. Most of her life. Because Barry Gordy never helped her out, even though they had children together, but whatever. So yeah, she was running around with the loose lips. And yes, she exposed that secret on the Joan Rivers show, which was basically on national television. And Diana Ross bolted out of the beauty shop, went straight to her office and called her attorney. And that's when she pulled out of the Motown Productions for the Motown 30 special. And yeah, and she basically wanted nothing to do with anyone from Motown. Now, before I tell you about the story behind the Bodyguard film, before Whitney Houston was attached to it, and the fake romance that coincided with the film, let me tell you about the time Berry Gordy cost Diana Ross an Oscar. Or at least that's what is implied. Was Diana Ross's acting career, which in the early days, Berry Gordy had his hands all over it. So Berry Gordy was invested in his superstar's acting career because he was launching his own film production side of Motown. And one of his pet projects was Lady Sings the Blues. Now, I don't know if he just didn't want to invest all of his money at that time, which, obviously people do it all the time, but he went to Paramount to get $2 million to produce the film. And this film, it sounds like it did take a toll on Diana Ross. So Lady Sings the Blues was loosely based on the blues singer Billie Holiday's autobiography, which she wrote with William Duffy. The film told the story, and I'm quoting here, of how Holiday, a child rape victim and former Manhattan prostitute, eventually became the toast of the town with a triumphant engagement at Carnegie Hall. Some of the names in this film were Billy D. Williams and Richard Pryor. Now, Diana Ross, she was always a bit shy and modest. She didn't like doing sexually explicit scenes. She didn't want to show a lot of skin. But when you are playing the lead role that involves a drug addict, it's kind of hard to get around that, especially when we're talking about a drug addict who is addicted to heroin. So, yeah, this was a tough role for Miss Diana Ross, and she was very early in her acting career at this point. I don't remember if they said she took acting lessons, although I doubt that would have helped, but the bottom line is she was plagued with nerves and self-consciousness. Then somebody handed her some liquor and told her, this will soothe your nerves and get you going so we can wrap this up, okay? Because it was getting kind of costly, okay? And when it was all said and done, the movie was 4 hours long, and Paramount told them, told Berry Gordy that he needed to cut it down to 90 minutes before it could be released. Now, Berry Gordy, he had every intention of editing the movie before it was to be released, but, Berry Gordy, he likes to own anything he's got his name on, okay? So basically, he came up with a $2 million to pay back Paramount so he could own the rights, both the domestic and foreign rights to the film. And then he put another $2 million from his own savings into the film. So it cost him roughly around $4 million to produce Lady Sings the Blues and own the rights to the film. And Barry said, quoting, as he put it, when it came to buying out Paramount, he said, this was to protect Diana Ross and the Billie Holiday legend. And then, Marvin Gaye had to put his 2 cents in it. So when it came to Berry Gordy spending all this money, Marvin Gaye said, Berry was betting the bank on Diana. So he had confidence in Diana Ross's ability to draw a profit at the box office, which I don't know why he had that much confidence, but, he went with it, okay? And he doesn't do anything halfway. So then, when the movie came out, it was a hit. It premiered on October 12, 1972. Diana Ross, deep in her pregnancy with her second child, she could not attend the premiere in New York. And so at the end of January of the year 1973, the Academy Award nominations were announced, and Diana Ross received the nomination in the Best Actress category, along with Liv Ullmann for The Immigrants, Maggie Smith for Travels with My Aunt, and Liza Minnelli for Cabaret, and lastly, Cicely Tyson for Sounder. Now, Diana Ross was expected to socialize with Hollywood's so-called movers and shakers, and, she had to be interviewed, she had to play nice with Hollywood. Well, it was said that Barry wanted this as much for Diana as he did for himself. Obviously, an Oscar win for Diana Ross would solidify Berry Gordy's filmmaking abilities. And so one of Barry's new Hollywood cronies, this is how they put it in the biography, told him that it was customary for motion picture studios and production companies to purchase advertisements in trade publications, primarily The Hollywood Reporter and The Daily Variety, that's specifically published for those in the industry, as a way to tout their films and stars. And then once nominated, more ads were purchased to encourage voting. Now, some people feel like this is a way to sway the votes in their favor, and that's why some people kind of imply that, the Oscars are bought in a way. So when Barry heard about how influential these advertisements could be, he was on board, okay? He was happy to play ball and do what was expected. So he spent thousands of dollars touting Lady Sings the Blues and Diana Ross in one of the most ambitious advertisement campaigns in recent Hollywood history. Day after day, there were full-page ads of Diana as Billie Holiday, looking her very worst, being photographed for her mugshot, her lips chapped, and her wig askew. Gordy was determined to prove Diana Ross was an actress and had selected the most melodramatic moments to illustrate that point. He also planted stories in the trades about upcoming film ventures that were not true. So basically, he was very ambitious with his campaign. Most observers were certain that Barry Gordy was to blame for the 1973 Oscar going to Liza Minnelli instead of Diana Ross. His aggressive persuasion just didn't go in his favor. Some people said they tried to warn Barry Gordy that, the Academy voters are older and conservative. For the most part, they're white and easily insulted. And I think Barry Gordy, being a black man with new money, as they call it, he probably rubbed people the wrong way, and it just was a turnoff. And that's how, well, it's not confirmed, but we know for sure she didn't get the Oscar. But whether Barry had something to do with it or not, that's what happened. She did not win the Oscar. And now we arrive at the story behind the Bodyguard script. By the end of 1978, director John Boorman submitted a movie treatment to John Calley, who was then the head of Warner Brothers. The film, entitled The Bodyguard, was anticipated to be a vehicle for Diana Ross and Ryan O'Neal. Ryan loved the idea and was sent, or maybe it was his own initiative, but he took it upon himself to woo Diana Ross into saying yes to the female lead role. Diana already had a friendly relationship with O'Neal from when she and her first husband owned a home in Malibu where O'Neal lived. He was known for being a distraction by jogging in the nude on the beach, to the delight of the ladies, but maybe not so much the fellas. Anyway, Diana Ross expressed interest in the movie and even phoned Ryan O'Neal to discuss their on-screen pairing. However, it was Barry Gordy who had reservations about the script. Maybe because she would be in an interracial romance with a white man, although Miss Ross spent most of her career catering to white audiences, she still was a black woman, and this would have been risque even for a major superstar like Miss Ross. Despite Barry's objections, Diana was excited to work with Ryan O'Neal. O'Neal was finishing his second film with Barbra Streisand and was one of her paramours in those days. He even had affairs with leading ladies of that era, or well-known celebrities, like Joan Collins and Bianca Jagger, but he was never romantically linked to a black woman. He denied his Playboy reputation to Diana Ross to put her mind at ease, and they began dating shortly after. Some people believed the romance was a ruse to entice Diana Ross to do the film. O'Neal visibly seemed interested in just getting a yes from Diana for the film and not inserting himself in her business affairs. He was especially interested in getting the film done because his film career was so inconsistent at that time. Maybe because of some addiction problems, who knows? Apparently, Warner Brothers Studios would not greenlight The Bodyguard unless O'Neal could get Miss Ross's commitment. Because the studio heads perceived the script as an interracial love story, the female lead would have to be a black woman. Diana Ross being the biggest female superstar at that time and having a large enough fan base to placate the fans and lure them to the movies in spite of their prejudiced beliefs. Some of them, not all, were prejudiced. She was, the only choice. The only option, okay? It's either Diana Ross in the lead or it's a no-go. So while Ryan O'Neal was trying to finesse Miss Ross into saying yes to The Bodyguard, they obviously became romantic and they were seen out and about. She likes to be discreet with her personal life and doesn't like to answer questions, yada, yada, yada. Although I could see Ryan O'Neal using this opportunity, especially with his career being so flaky, I could see him wanting to make sure he got in the papers with Miss Diana Ross. But she was wanting to keep the high profile romance hush hush, even though, her inner circle knew about it, her close friends and family and the people that she worked with. Barry even liked him. But then, while she was trying to keep the romance away from watchful eyes, it was found out, of course, and the National Enquirer, of all magazines, they actually published a true story about their romance. Who knew? I mean, I guess, they had time in between UFOs and aliens. I don't know. But in their May 29th, 1979 issue, Diana Ross and Ryan O'Neal made the cover of the National Enquirer. By that time, Ryan was growing exhausted with the temperamental Miss Ross, and his enchantment of her was dwindling away by the minute. Time was ticking, okay? Time was ticking. So finally, Ryan O'Neal was out of time and needed to give the studios a yes from Diana. But Diana Ross finally found her words. After months of hesitation and not really wanting to make a decision, she finally came to the conclusion that she did not want to make the film because she didn't like the violence and profanity. She also didn't want to do nude scenes. And believe it or not, this one I found odd, but Miss Ross did not want to sing in the film. And she wasn't happy with the title of the film because it emphasized Ryan's character and not her own. So basically, it was a no for Miss Ross, okay? It was a no. To sum it up, that's a no. So it sounds like Ryan was livid once he heard the final answer, okay? Because, he was spending a lot of time with Miss Ross, and I get the feeling it was just for the sake of getting her to do the movie. So I guess, to him, it kind of seemed like a waste of time. So he was done with Diana Ross, but people in her inner circle said she pursued him unabashedly, saying there was more to their romance than just a film. I guess O'Neal disagreed because he wasn't taking her calls and wasn't looking for her, okay? He went MIA. So anyway, the bottom line is Miss Ross has a fascinating life story to tell. I know she's very private, but I think because of how private she is, her legacy may fade as it is fading already, but even more so because she's so private and not wanting to tell her story. So younger generations are not going to know who Diana Ross is and not going to know why they should even care to look into who she is. So I think she's probably the main obstacle behind why we haven't seen a film about Miss Ross thus far. But if it should materialize, I want to see all of those things. And this book was written in the 80s, so I'm sure there's a whole lot more story to add to it. But I know if she were part of the process, it wouldn't be a good film because she would definitely water down all the juicy parts, okay? All the stuff that we want to hear probably would get edited out. And, she'd keep the hallmark moments, which we really don't want to see. So, yeah, I think it would be best for entertainment's sake if Miss Ross wasn't a part of her life story on the big screen or even on the small screen, I mean, she has lived so much life that even what do they call those, limited series, that would be interesting too. Now, that would be an option for her. I mean, Gladys Knight is doing it, so why not Miss Ross? But I'm sure, publishers and studios probably fear a potential lawsuit if they proceeded without her approval. So here we are. Anyway, that does it for me in this episode. If you liked this video, give it a like. Consider subscribing if you choose. And answer me this. If Diana Ross, if it were to be a film, series, TV, movie, whatever, about Miss Ross, who do you think should be in the running to play Miss Ross? I can't think of any names right now, but I think it would be best to have an unknown. But you got to get somebody who's got those big eyes, because it's the eyes, You got to get the eyes right. Yeah, it's all about the eyes. There is a link in the description if you want more info on the unauthorized biography of Diana Ross. Call Her Miss Ross by J Randy Taraborrelli. That's all for me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.